The basketball arena was alive with energy, every seat filled with fans roaring for their beloved Los Angeles Lakers. It was a night like any other, or so it seemed. As the tension of the game mounted, all eyes were on LeBron James, the king of basketball, commanding the court with unmatched skill and focus. Every pass, every dunk, every step drew deafening cheers from the crowd. But then, something extraordinary happened. In the middle of the action, LeBron's focus wavered. His gaze lingered on the crowd, his usually sharp expression softening into something unrecognizable. There, among the sea of faces, he spotted someone who shouldn't have been there. Someone from his past. Someone he thought he might never see again. The game didn't stop, but for LeBron, time seemed to freeze. Who was this woman, and why did her presence shake the unshakable LeBron James? As the game played on, so did the memories, rushing back with an intensity as powerful as any shot he had ever taken. What happened next would prove that even legends are human, and that the power of gratitude can transcend the game. It all started when the roaring crowd inside the Staples Center was a symphony of excitement, its energy electrifying the air. The Los Angeles Lakers were locked in a high-stakes battle with their fiercest rivals, and every pass, every dribble, every dunk carried the weight of expectations. At the heart of it all was LeBron James, the king of the court, moving with precision and grace that seemed almost otherworldly. His presence on the hardwood was magnetic, an unstoppable force leading his team toward another hard-fought victory. LeBron's focus was unbreakable. As it always was during games of this magnitude, every fiber of his being was tuned to the rhythm of the game. He called out plays with authority, his deep voice cutting through the din of the arena. His powerful strides and lightning-fast reflexes were a testament to his years of dedication. Fans in their seats chanted his name, their admiration pouring out in waves. It was another night in the life of a legend. But for LeBron, it was never just another game. Each moment on the court was a reminder of the journey that had brought him here. As the first quarter unfolded, LeBron's mind was a fortress of concentration. His towering frame sliced through defenders, his passes as precise as laser beams, his dunks resonating with a force that shook the arena. His famous grin appeared occasionally, a quick flash of joy that betrayed the intensity of his focus. This was his domain, his sanctuary. But even the greatest can be blindsided by the unexpected. Midway through the second quarter, something pulled at LeBron's attention. It was subtle at first, like a faint tug on his consciousness. He shook it off, sprinting back on defense, eyes scanning the court. But as the game pressed on, the pull became stronger. On a timeout, as he headed toward the bench, his gaze swept across the crowd. That's when he saw her. A woman, seated just a few rows behind the Lakers bench, caught his eye. Her presence shouldn't have been significant. Just another face in the sea of fans. But this face was different. It was a face he hadn't seen in years but could never forget. His steps faltered for a moment, and his breath caught in his throat. She was looking right at him, her expression a mix of pride and something deeper. Something that stirred old memories LeBron thought he had long buried. It couldn't be her, could it? During the next few plays, LeBron's movements were slightly offbeat, uncharacteristic for a player of his caliber. He missed a defensive rebound and turned the ball over, mistakes that sent murmurs through the crowd. His teammates, puzzled by the uncharacteristic errors, shot him concerned glances. But LeBron wasn't distracted by the game. His mind was back in Akron, Ohio, years ago, walking the halls of his middle school as a shy, uncertain boy. He glanced at the woman again during a break. There was no mistaking it now. It was her. Miss Harper, his middle school English teacher. Her hair was streaked with gray, her posture more fragile than he remembered. But the warmth in her eyes was unmistakable. Memories flooded back, overwhelming him in a way that no game-winning shot or championship parade ever could. LeBron's mind rewound to a time when life wasn't measured in championships or accolades. It was a time of uncertainty and struggle, when he was just a boy searching for stability in a world that often felt chaotic. Miss Harper had been one of the few constants in his life during those turbulent years. Her classroom had been a refuge, her words a balm for a soul weighed down by the instability of bouncing between homes and schools. Miss Harper had seen something in LeBron that no one else seemed to notice. She recognized the fire in his eyes, even when it was dimmed by the weight of his circumstances. "LeBron," she would tell him, "greatness doesn't come from where you start. It comes from where you're willing to go." Those words became a cornerstone of his mindset, a belief that propelled him forward even when the odds were stacked against him. Back on the court, the buzzer signaled halftime. While his teammates filed into the locker room, LeBron found himself walking in the opposite direction. He couldn't ignore the pull any longer. He needed to talk to her. Navigating through the crowded stands wasn't easy for a man of his stature, but the urgency in his heart overpowered any hesitation. When he reached her, he stood for a moment, towering above her, unsure of what to say. The woman who had once been his guide in the wilderness of his youth now looked up at him with a mix of joy and weariness. "Miss Harper," he said, his voice uncharacteristically soft. Her face broke into a smile, though it was laced with exhaustion. "LeBron," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I knew you'd recognize me." The embrace that followed was unlike any hug LeBron had shared, with fans or family. It was a collision of past and present, a meeting of two souls forever connected by the bond of shared struggle and unwavering support. For a moment, the roaring arena around them faded away, leaving only the two of them in the spotlight of an idée unspoken understanding. "You being here," LeBron said, his voice thick with emotion, "means more than you'll ever know." Miss Harper chuckled softly, her frailty apparent in the way she leaned into him. "I had to see you," she said, "to see the man you've become. I always knew you had it in you." Her words tugged at his heart. There was a weight in her voice, a heaviness that hinted at something deeper. Before he could ask, an usher gently reminded him that halftime was almost over. Reluctantly, he pulled away, but not before promising to find her after the game. As LeBron walked back to the locker room, his thoughts churned. The king of basketball, a man known for his composure under pressure, found himself shaken. The Hebe second half loomed, but all he could think about was the woman who had helped shape him, sitting just a few feet away. The game resumed, and LeBron played with a fire that seemed almost otherworldly. His moves were sharper, his focus razor-like. But beneath the surface, his mind replayed the moments he had shared with Miss Harper, her words echoing in his heart. Whatever had brought her here tonight, he knew one thing for certain. He couldn't let her leave without making sure she knew just how much she meant to him. And as the crowd roared for another dazzling LeBron dunk, he realized that this night, this game, wasn't just about basketball. It was about something far more profound. It was about gratitude, legacy, and the power of a single person to change a life forever. As LeBron soared through the air for another breathtaking dunk, the crowd erupted, their cheers rolling like thunder through the arena. But in that fleeting moment of glory, his mind wasn't on the game. It was on Miss Harper, seated in the U stands, her presence pulling him back to a time before fame, fortune, and the bright lights of the NBA. His focus sharpened, not just for the game, but for the unspoken promise he was already crafting in his heart. Each dribble, every shot, carried new meaning now. He wasn't just playing to win, he was playing to honor her, to show her that every word she'd spoken, every ounce of belief she had placed in him, had mattered. His teammates noticed the shift in his demeanor, the way his eyes burned with an intensity that went beyond mere competition. This wasn't just about basketball anymore. By the time the fourth quarter rolled around, the Lakers had pulled ahead, the score reflecting the dominance of their star player. Yet LeBron's mind remained a storm of thoughts and emotions. The image of Miss Harper, her frail hands clasped tightly, her weary but proud smile, was imprinted on his mind. He needed to know why she had come, why tonight, of all nights, and why her smile carried that undercurrent of sadness. The final buzzer sounded, sealing a hard-fought victory for the Lakers. Fans erupted into cheers, and his teammates swarmed the court in celebration. But LeBron's heart wasn't in the post-game rituals. As the arena erupted in excitement, he found his gaze drifting once more to Miss Harper. She was still there, watching him with that same mix of pride and melancholy. He couldn't let her leave without speaking to her again. Ignoring the press and the locker room celebrations, LeBron jogged off the court, weaving his way through the stands. Security guards and fans looked on curiously as he approached her once more. "Miss Harper," he said, his voice steadier this time, though the emotion was still palpable. "I need to talk to you. Can we go somewhere quiet?" She nodded, her expression softening as she placed a gentle hand on his arm. "Of course, LeBron," she said, her voice filled with the same warmth he remembered from all those years ago. In a quiet hallway beneath the stadium, away from the noise and chaos of the crowd, LeBron finally had the chance to hear her story. As she spoke, the weight of her words hit him like a blow, to the chest. Miss Harper had been diagnosed with an aggressive illness just a few months ago. The treatments were grueling, draining her both physically and financially. Yet, she hadn't come to him for help or pity. "I didn't want to burden you, LeBron," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "I just wanted to see you play one more time, to see the man you've become. It gives me so much joy, more than you'll ever know." Her words were like a dagger to his heart. This woman, who had given so much of herself to him and countless others, now faced a battle she was fighting quietly, without complaint or expectation. LeBron's mind raced. How could someone who had shaped his life so profoundly, who had been his guiding light during his darkest days, now stand before him looking so fragile and alone? Tears stung his eyes as he reached for her hands, enveloping them in his own. "Miss Harper," he said, his voice breaking, "you've always been there for me. I won't let you go through this alone. You taught me how to fight when things seemed impossible. Now it's my turn to fight for you." She tried to protest, shaking her head. "LeBron, I didn't come here for that. I just wanted to see you, to let you know how proud I am." But LeBron wouldn't hear it. "Miss Harper," he said, his tone firm but gentle, "you didn't just teach me English. You taught me resilience, hope, and how to believe in myself. You gave me the tools to succeed, and I owe you everything. Please, let me help." That night, LeBron couldn't sleep. Her words echoed in his mind, her face etched into his thoughts. He knew he had to act, not out of obligation, but out of love and gratitude. The next morning, he reached out to his closest team of advisors and friends, quietly setting a plan in motion. He wasn't interested in making headlines or drawing attention to his actions. For LeBron, this was personal. First, he connected Miss Harper with some of the best medical specialists in the country, ensuring she had access to top-tier treatment. He covered every expense: doctor visits, therapies, medications, making sure money would never be a barrier to her recovery. But he didn't stop there. Lebron also established a trust fund for her, one that would provide not only for her immediate needs, but for her long-term security as well. As the days turned into weeks, Lebron made it a point to visit her regularly, even amidst his demanding schedule. Each visit was a chance to reminisce, to thank her for the countless ways she had shaped his life. He brought her small gifts: books, flowers, even a basketball signed by the entire Lakers team. But more than that, he brought her time, something she had given so freely to him in his youth. LeBron's actions didn't remain hidden for long. Word began to spread about what he was doing for Miss Harper, and soon the media picked up the story. Fans across the world were moved by his quiet generosity, by the way he had chosen to honor a woman who had meant so much to him. But for LeBron, the real reward wasn't in the headlines or the accolades. It was in the look of gratitude and love on Miss Harper's face every time they met. She had once told him that greatness wasn't about where you started. It was about where you ended up and the impact you made along the way. Now, he was living proof of those words. And as LeBron watched Miss Harper smile during one of their visits, her frailty giving way to a moment of pure joy, he knew that this wasn't the end of her story. It was just the beginning of a new chapter, one in which she could finally see the ripple effects of her kindness and dedication. For LeBron, this was more than just a gesture of gratitude. It was a way to ensure that Miss Harper's legacy lived on, not just in his life, but in the lives of countless others. This wasn't just about paying her back, it was about paying it forward. And as the sun set on another day in Los Angeles, LeBron James realized that the true measure of greatness wasn't in the number of championships or trophies. It was in the lives you touched, the hearts you lifted, and the legacy you left behind. But speaking of life-changing moments, imagine this. Denzel Washington, one of Hollywood's biggest stars, was refused a first-class seat by a flight attendant who didn't recognize him. What he said next left everyone speechless and taught a lesson no one will ever forget. Click on the video appearing on your screen right now to find out what happened and why this moment became a story for the ages. You won't believe what Denzel did next.